Hope your weekend went great, Kurt. We appreciate you joining us as per usual. And you guys weren't just messing around with Rich. You guys were talking a lot about the Bears and their run game. Now, look, you're our quarterback here. We love to talk to you about quarterback play. But I imagine that you were sitting there watching what the Bears were able to do Friday with their run game and had thoughts on it. So why were they so effective against what is usually a pretty good front for Philadelphia?
Well, I think it really started. And what's going on, guys? Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir.
I think it, starts with, and I was talking about a little bit on our show, is that when Ben Johnson came in, the kind of mentality or thought is, oh, he was so creative in the pass game in Detroit. He's going to come in and they're going to throw it all over, and Caleb's going to be the first Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000. And that's kind of your mindset when he came in there. And, then as the season's gone along, and you've watched this play out, and you watched it play out last Friday, I think you're kind of reminded, oh, wait, Detroit was really good at running the football. And it really started up front and, the creativity of running the football and then tying it into the pass game and the play action. And I think we were reminded of that, last Friday. And actually, the Bears are the only team in the NFL that have rushed for 250 or more twice, at least coming into the weekend. And so it's the creativity in which he brings to this offense, and it's pass game and run game. And I think that's what you're starting to see is creativity to give his guys up front angles and to slow down the defense and to throw some eye candy out there to help get, those blocking angles that they need up front. And they're playing really well up front. They've got a couple backs that are running the football really well. And we've said it for a number of weeks. Caleb isn't necessarily playing great football. The beautiful thing, and Daniel Jeremiah, who was on our show, is kind of our draft expert. He mentioned this as well. And he said, as a quarterback in the NFL, you need at least one of two things. You need to either be really efficient or you need to be explosive. You have to have one of the two. Obviously, if you have both, that elevates you to that elite status. But what he was saying about Caleb is that Caleb doesn't have the efficiency right now, but he's got the explosiveness. And that's what he brings to the table right now. They're running the football really well, and he brings these explosive special plays to the offense, even if they're not fully efficient right now, even if he's missing some throws and some reads that you just go, okay, you got to make that. That's a layup in the NFL. He's still working through those things, but he gives them enough explosives along with the other things they're doing, turning the football over on defense and running the football really well. It's just, again, I like the formula. And I think maybe this was the first time that I, saw the Bears and said, wow, I hadn't really thought of them as a team that could dominate up front and win games like this, in weather, on the road. And so it kind of changed my perspective of, who this team is and what they could be moving forward. I know they fall into the number one spot. You guys already had that in your promo, of course. That they're the number one seed in the NFC. And, I would have never seen that coming. And, I even said a couple weeks, I thought, one of the other teams in the division might take it over. But I like the formula. I like what they're doing. And yes, Caleb's going to have to be more efficient, I think, at playoff time. But that to me has been their formula for winning up to this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a conversation-changing win for us locally. So we're not surprised, and that makes all the sense in the world that it's a conversation-changing win for you. Because if they can run like that on the road against the Super Bowl champs with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle, they could probably do that against anybody, which is a staggering place to be. Last week, you were wonderful on this show talking about the pinch concept that Mike Martz did. You said it was the route that bought your house. And Ben Johnson's been doing it, and they did it a lot against the Steelers. We didn't see it, I don't believe, against the Eagles. But the Eagles kept their two safeties back, so they wouldn't allow it, right? Like, did you see any of that stuff?
It's actually a play that you can run against any coverage, which is the beauty of it. They did run it one time. I think it was to Rome, and it was tightly covered. There was a corner right on his back, and so it was kind of a bang-bang play. They didn't end up completing it in this game. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a staple, and it's going to show up probably every week, 1 or 2 times, and maybe some weeks a little bit more than that. But you may go a week without it being a primary part of it. But
see, that's my question, Kurt. Like, if a team loads up for 8 in the box, just loads up to try and stop this run game, that like there are ways that Ben Johnson then counters that. Is Caleb ready to do those?
Well, I mean, that's an easy counter. And I'll look at the team that's on the other side. It was on the other side of you guys on Friday, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. And they've made a living over the last couple of years and won a Super Bowl doing just that. We're going to run the football. And if you add an extra guy to the box, that leaves Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown outside one-on-one. It makes the game easy for a quarterback, because then it just becomes pitch and catch, right? It's one-on-one out there with those guys, because you have to add everybody else to the box. And that's a quarterback's best friend. Now, you got to drop back and make those throws, which, again, is something that Caleb's got to get better at, just making the throws out in front of him. But just from a mental standpoint as a quarterback, it's a much easier thing to do. And you've seen that within their offense a little bit this year is, what we always call the alert package, where you go up with a run called and you've alerted to a pass. And so the idea is we're going to read the defense. If the defense drops that extra guy in the box, we're going to alert it and go to a pass that we like against kind of that one-on-one or middle closed defense that we're seeing. If they keep the 2 safeties high and they want to play some sort of 2-shell, now we're just going to hand the football off and we're going to run the football. So it's putting them in those advantageous situations every single time they come up to the line of scrimmage. And Caleb has run those and been successful with those throughout the year. If they can continue to run the football like this, I'm sure it will be a big-time staple in what they want to do offensively.
I feel like one of the better examples of that, and I've been watching while you were talking, is the touchdown to Cole Kmet, where the Eagles are like, no, let's put 8 in the box. Let's try and stop the run. They get caught on play action. They get caught on playing the flat. And then Cole Kmet is able to sneak down the middle of the field. And we see something that you've been saying that you want to see from Caleb. That that he can throw the fastball. He puts some touch and a little bit of loft underneath the ball for Cole Kmet to make. I feel like that's a great combination of all of the different things that you've been talking about on how to make the Bears offense work.
A little bit. Yeah, I tell you what, I was surprised by that throw. They run a lot of the naked bootlegs because Caleb is really good on the move and creating plays. And, that was later in the game, and they called the naked bootleg, and his first read was open, which he had taken 4 or 5 times already in the game. And so I don't know if this was something that, Ben told him in his helmet, like, hey, come out on this one and kind of peek at the quick one and then see if you can get the shot over the top, or if this was just Caleb ad-libbing. But for some reason, he came out, number 1 was open in the flat, and he kind of looked at him real quick, and the corner had to jump it because they were kind of selling out to stop the run at that point in the game. And so that's what you kind of do is, hey, we're going to play action and we'll steal 4 or 5 yards, or we'll steal a first down. He passed that all up and said, forget it. I'm going for the jugular, and I'm going to put this up over the top. And so that was just a great play by Caleb to see it was open, to know he had the edge, so there was no pressure there. Let me peek at the deep one. And I agree with you. I love the touch that he put on that football, to be able to kind of turn his hips going to his left and just flip it up in the air and allow it to be easy and let his playmaker go run under it and make a play. But it was a key play in the game, and I thought it was a great play by Caleb.
Did you see him going through his progressions more? It's hard for us to see that. I wonder if he's been able to get deeper into the route tree as he's back there beyond the number 1 target.
Yeah, not necessarily in this game. I thought there were a couple times his eyes kind of started in the wrong spot. And, there's a couple times every game where he goes a little bit deeper into that. I don't know, oftentimes it's a similar play that I see where he kind of works from 1 and easily gets to 2 and works through it faster. I think some of these other things, as you change up the plays, or maybe plays he hasn't run quite as much, he may get stuck a little bit longer on one, or be a little bit more uncomfortable or uneasy with his read, and it slows down his process. Yeah, so I mean, still work to do in that area. I didn't think this last game he was necessarily great in that area, and again, it kind of showed up in completion percentage and some of those things. But again, the work in progress that we've been talking about every week is still there in certain areas. But as I mentioned earlier, the beautiful thing is just like that commit touchdown that we're talking about, is that he brings these big plays to the table, so they can still win games, and he can still be productive as a quarterback, even if he's not fully efficient right now. I think he's been really good down in the red zone too, where he's been real definitive, and I noticed it more in the Pittsburgh game than this last game because they were running the football so well. But there were 3 plays, it just come back, see it, boom, put your foot in the ground and put it on your guy, which is so key down in the red zone. So I like that trend as well, that really definitive and confident making some of those throws into those tight windows in the red zone.
When Ben Johnson got to Haugh, like, he really said, look, everyone here, their job is to help these players get the most out of their talent. I don't know if there's any better proof of concept than winning. So I'd love to know from you, what's it like when a team believes?
I mean, it's when they believe in what your coach is selling in 2 respects. So I remember when Coach Wisenhunt came to Arizona, and Arizona had never really won. It had been the losingest team in the last 50 years in the NFL. And he came, and his message from day one was, we're going to win. And here's my plan. And I'm going to stick with this plan, and we're going to win. And, I think there was a lot of skepticism, as there is, anytime a new coach comes in, because they all say the same thing, like, hey, we're going to win, and this is the plan, this is how we're going to do it. And it doesn't always work that way. But we watched Coach Wisenhunt continue to share the same message and continue to stick to that plan as we started to turn the corner, and we started to win, and we started to see that part of it. And so it gives you such a confidence in the guy leading you. Like, oh, wow, we were skeptical, and he's proven to us that, what he says and what his plan is can get us there. And so now you start to buy in, and you're confident in everything that coach is doing, because he's showing us that it works. And then, you take the next step and you do that on the football field. When you have coaches that put you in positions to be like, trust me, this is what we're going to do, and we will run the football, or we're going to, do this, and it will create an open receiver here. And you might be skeptical at first, like, really? That's going to, and then all of a sudden you see it on film and you're like, wow, okay. So now every time he comes in and lays a play up on the board, you're like, okay, what's going to be open? And, you believe everything that they're selling. And what that does for you when you go out there to not be tentative. I was just talking to somebody not too long ago, just about that idea of going in, and sometimes they call a play and you're not confident in that play. And so you come back and you're playing tentative, and all of a sudden it pops open, but you're not really ready for that, because you're thinking, I wasn't really comfortable going in. I don't think it's going to be open. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Poof, all of a sudden you miss it. Now, if it's the opposite, and you go in and you've seen it be successful, and your coach tells you this is going to happen, and it shows up in practice, man, you're coming out in the game, and man, you are ready, and you hit that back foot, and you believe that it's going to be open. Even if it's not open, you believe it. Mike Martz was the same way with us. Is we believed everything that he dialed up was going to be successful. Like, we were going to score on every play. Like, that was just how we believed, because we saw it play out over and over and over again. Here's a new play. We're going to do this. Okay, I'm not really sure. Boom, and then it shows up and it works. And, you just keep buying in. And it feels like that's exactly what Ben Johnson has been selling to these guys. And they're buying in. They're buying in across the board with, all the crazy things and formations and things that they're doing. They're seeing it play out, and it gets you excited to come to work, right? I mean, you're going to be excited when you're the number 1 seed in the NFC. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody expected that in Ben's first year. But you're seeing that stuff play out. Hey, we're going to run the football against this Philadelphia Eagle team. Well, okay, sure, sure we are. Nobody Nobody does. Boom, we come out and we run for 280 yards. And, that's the kind of stuff that gets guys excited and pumped up and believing that whatever this guy dials up, whatever he says, it's going to work, and it's a great place to be.
Kurt, as always, we appreciate the education. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, sounds good, guys.